After all of that, you have an entire chapter dedicated to preparing for the game. This chapter mostly focuses on the preparations the game master needs to undergo before every session. Different work needs to be done at the beginning of the chronicle, then at the beginning of a regular episode. If you divide every episode into 2 separate sessions, there is little to no work required between the meetings. Now you have 3 levels of preparation. You have the basic level, the advanced level, and the expert level. When it comes to the expert level, it is designed with the seasoned Defiant game masters in mind. This enables them to either go beyond the classic structure or introduce entire new elements to it. This expert level will require the mastery of both the basic and advanced level, and their rules are not included in this rulebook. They will be covered in the future supplements. So it's much better to stick to basic level and advanced level, of course, depending on your mastery of the system, but also on how the players feel comfortable with the chronicle as it is moving forward. But also with what the players can handle when it comes to the entire season. So basic level is the fastest and least demanding way of preparing for the game. So this level is much better to be used with beginner type of groups, but also for more experienced game masters that have little time to prepare for the game. But if you have more time on your hands and you are more familiar with the system, you can use the advanced level. The preparation will take longer and will require a bit more design skills. But it's not that complicated once you get the hang of it. In a couple of sessions, you will probably master it. Even if you're just starting as a game master, it's good to familiarize yourself with the advanced level. Maybe you will decide to use some of the rules later on. All of these different levels of preparation that encompass different aspects of the game are quite customizable. You can take some elements, for example, from basic level and some levels from advanced level, and they will work in harmony. There won't be any conflict. So when it comes to basic preparations, you create 3 mirror concepts for each character, and you choose or create a basic story arc. There are more explanations about these concepts later on in this section. When it comes to advanced preparations, you create 6 mirror concepts for each character, and you assign 3 mirror concepts per character to non-player characters. You also choose or create an advanced story arc, and you create an arch nemesis. When it comes to preparing the episode itself, on the basic level, you restock mirrors, you create 2 threads, you also create or choose 1 additional non-player character for each thread, and you consider implementing the story arc. When it comes to advanced preparations, you restock mirrors and secrets, you create 2 threads, you create or choose 2 non-player characters for each thread, and you create the underlying circumstances. You also consider implementing or modifying the story arc. Remember, all of this will be explained in a few moments. For example, when you create mirror concepts, the mirror mechanic is the key element of Defiant, making for unique gaming experiences. Mirror concepts are basically tools that help you to put the player characters in focus, making the story all about them. You should introduce new mirrors or include already established ones whenever you have the chance. Mirrors are not non-player characters, they are basic concepts which can either serve as foundations for new non-player characters or be integrated into already existing characters. So for example, let's talk about basic mirrors. You pick a character's theme and you mirror it. So maybe you come up with a concept such as brutal warrior or unbeaten warrior, creepy warrior. This should be a mirror of an existing character concept. This is great for some non-player characters that are either allies or antagonists to the players. It depends on the situation and what happens with the endeavors, of course, or long-term plans. But mirrors are basically something that creates a sharp contrast. In a way, you are mirroring an existing player character or non-player character to create conflict, to spice up situations, and to further the intrigues and plotlines throughout an entire season, or just a few episodes if you wish. When it comes to advanced mirrors, you pick a character's personal theme and analyze it. You choose the type of mirror. You even have categories of mirror. You have like the challenger. Challengers resemble the characters that they mirror in many ways, at least in the areas that they are supposed to reflect, and they show similar skills or attitudes. it's usually very difficult to establish which character is superior. You also have the opposite. While the challenger resembles the character in many ways, the opposite is anything but. As the name suggests, they are the exact opposite of the element they are mirroring. The mirror could also be an aspiring mirror. The most important part of aspiring mirrors is not who they are, but rather who they want to become. So aspiring mirrors are potential elements that could become somewhat similar to a player character's existing concept. You also have the flawed. The character finds the flawed mirror very similar to them in some regard, but there is always something in the way of the flawed that keeps them from becoming just like the player character or non-player character they are mirroring. You also have the lust. Unlike many other mirrors, the lust does not share any similarities to the character. They might even not resemble them at all, but they used to be like them. So this is something that got distorted along the way, or perhaps reshaped, and was once similar to an existing player character based on what the character currently is or could become. Next we have the paragon. Paragon mirrors are the ones the society looks up to. They are role models and epitomes of what they mirror in a specific character. They have achieved it all. They became the embodiments of the concepts that they reflect. So you come up with these concepts. To simplify things, mirrors are just there to reflect an aspect of the player character, something that the player character could become, something that the player character has been or is currently representing, and this also gives birth to many different threads and ideas throughout the entire series. Then you have an explanation on how to create non-player characters, because player characters live in a world full of people. This setting is quite realistic within the surrealness of it, on how a city is populated. So you have mortals going about their normal days, but you also have lowborn and bloodborne visitors from other provinces. You also have authority figures, neighboring royals and their own courts, etc. So everything that the player characters are doing will clash or harmonize with things that the non-player characters are planning or doing. To create non-player characters in a simple way or a basic way, you pick a mirror concept, you pick an origin and a position, you also pick a house, you give that non-player character a secret, something good, something bad perhaps, or something in between, and you add a name and an archetype. When it comes to advanced non-player characters, you pick a mirror concept, you choose more details, you pit them against their house, because every house has its own set of values and rules. The non-player character can be the embodiment of those ideals, or a rebellious black sheep. You also add a distinctive feature, and you give them a secret and a relationship, and of course a name and an archetype. Non-player characters can be created on the fly. It's very easy for this system, considering that the player characters are going to be making all of the roles depending on the challenge. You just need to have a clear concept of the non-player character that is going to assist them or work against them, or act as a neutral party that they need to convince to do something in their favor. Player character created non-player characters can also exist, and when the players are describing what the player characters are going through with their cards and interacting with other members of the royalty or normal humans, they can also create non-player characters quite easily. Remember, this is a very collaborative experience when compared to other role-playing games. The players also feel like game masters. You also have a section telling you how to create secrets, because in Defiant, every non-player character has got a secret or a few more. Non-player character secrets are a way to keep interaction with them fresh and interesting. You have basic secrets. This is pretty straightforward. You simply write down one thing that the characters don't know about the non-player character, and that is not obvious after a brief interaction. You also have advanced secrets with different categories. They could be dirty secrets, surprising secrets, silly secrets, dark secrets, intimate secrets. You also have information on how to create threads. They are the main story seeds of the game. Each episode features 2 threads, meaning that there's at least a single thread to play in every session. Threads are basically setups for the scenes, but threads are by no means scripts, scenarios, or quests. They are organic. They are always changing according to what happens in the game world. You also have levels of threads. For example, basic threads. These are simplified ideas. For example, an event is taking place somewhere, and the player characters are part of that. Or maybe there are some issues, problems, or complications present that the characters either try to tackle or watch them unfold. To create these sorts of threads, you choose a location, you choose an activity, you create problems, you introduce non-player characters. Now when it comes to advanced threads, you also choose a location, but you go further or deeper into the details. It could be the characters holding, a holding within the province, a holding outside of the province, a neutral ground, dangerous territory, a party site, but you also need to choose an activity. You have 6 types of activities that are perfect to use in threads, advanced threads particularly. Maybe there's a party or a ball going on, maybe there's a tournament or contest, maybe there is some sort of mission or you need to carry out some duty, maybe there's something related to mundane or mortal affairs. Maybe you are visiting someone or meeting someone. There could be a hunt or a fight. You also need to choose an issue. You could implement the issues in different ways, but it's better to focus on the implementation. Take into consideration that there could be, for example, commandments or local laws, non-player characters' personalities, things that could act over the game world or upon the player character's endeavors in all sorts of unpredictable ways. So there are 3 different approaches you can choose from when implementing an issue. You could showcase the chosen issue in the thread, which is the easiest option. The issue could, example, be the bad temper of a neighboring lord. You could include a scene in your thread where he lashes out at his courtiers for no apparent reason. Or maybe you want to handle the issue as an obstacle. In this case, the characters need to, for example, in the case of the Angry Lord, they need to get him on board with their project. That is a bit more challenging. To sway him, they need to tread carefully, not to further enrage him. Or the issue could also serve as underlying trouble throughout the thread. In this case, this could become a minor or major inconvenience for the characters on the long run. In the case of this ill-tempered lord, maybe he accompanies them on a mission assigned by the princeps, and they need to put up with his behavior. You also have information on principles, which are the basic rules of Defiant Society. We have talked about them, but they could also be at the center of an issue. You could also handle commandments. Commandments are probably the most influential laws impacting the lives of all the supernaturals in the domain, so they feel more grand or universal, and therefore should be perfect for graver issues, or issues of greater importance. You also have local laws related to the province or holding laws that could work into an existing issue or create new issues. The issue could have something to do with an archetype or a secret. The conflict could be quite direct, but regardless, when creating threads around these issues or that are parallel to these issues, you need to create a high point. When you create a thread, you're not supposed to design the storyline. The non-player characters, the player characters' actions, the consequences of challenges, and special rules will fill your rough sketch with interesting situations and a character-made plot. It doesn't necessarily have to happen at the end of the thread. So to structure things better, you could have an introduction, a reveal, a centerpiece, a change of scenery, a choice. You could raise the stakes, anything related to the basic structure of a thread. It's also a good idea to write down key non-player characters and create conflicting agendas for each player character and non-player character as well. You can also add optional elements like, for example, introducing an interest group, strong individuals that are crucial for proper storylines. They could be the way to move forward through a mystery or as catalysts for different endeavors. And this also means that the entire story arc can be quite flexible as it moves forward with the series. You could also add more non-player characters as needed, or even side events. And then we have a section on how to prepare the story arc. The Defiant seasons are not centered around a strong plotline. they are not campaigns from the classical role-playing game point of view. The episodes revolve mainly around the actions of the characters, which may lead to surprising outcomes, rather than having the heroes going through predetermined consecutive acts of the script. In that sense, Defiant is quite freeform, and of course, to better organize or simplify the process, you can handle things at different levels. When it comes to a basic story arc, this is the faster way to create a story arc, but it could result in more dynamic plots that, if handled without care, they could become too much of a focal point in the chronicle. To create this sort of story arc, you visualize the dark fate. That is, you start coming up with an idea for something bad that could happen in the chronicle. You also follow the steps to create a coherent story arc. There are basically 4 steps. You have step 1, the whispers, designing rumors or incomplete information about the potential problem. You also have the side event. This is a way to insert a thread into the story arc without it taking the center stage or completely taking the focus of the story arc. You also have the main event. This time the story arc is put completely at the focus or at the center of an outline, with a thread completely encircling it. And then you have the showdown and the aftermath. In the final episode of the season, both threads, that is, remember, for each story arc you have 2 threads, they should revolve around the story arc. The first one is supposed to be more dramatic, and they will reach a climactic conclusion through a showdown, and you will make sense of the outcome with an aftermath. Now, when it comes to creating a more advanced story arc, you have an advanced story arc breakdown, and this goes further into the details of the story arc itself, because, for example, you need to create 2 contradicting factions. You need to design different introduction to the seeds or the threads. They need to be more complex, more intriguing. You also design different introduction seeds to these factions. You create the light path and the dark path for each faction. Maybe you become allies or enemies with the wrong faction. Or maybe you make it the right faction, but you will still enter into conflict with the other faction or more groups involved, and with other elements that intertwine with the storyline itself. You also plan the circumstances of the choices that the player characters make. You envision the 2 final showdowns concerning these factions, and you write it all down as ready-to-use elements. As you can see, there is a certain duality to the creation of storylines, of threads, on the ways that the mirrors siphon or are pulled into these 2 currents. There is always a certain duality to it all. Then you have a chapter with lots of advice on how to run the game. You have more information on the 3 levels of game mastery to choose the right level for you. For example, the basic level that we have covered in several elements, that enables you to run a Defiant episode with minimum effort for a more simplified or streamlined experience. And you have the advanced level that explores many different intricacies, details. It gets an idea of the bigger picture by analyzing and treating all of the elements involved with great care. And we have the expert level that, like I told you, it is not included in this rulebook. It lets you tinker with the game's mechanics, tailor them to your own needs, and introduces methods that could be too demanding and time-consuming if you are not well-versed or experienced with the system. I am very curious about this expert level. I wonder if it will add an extra level of crunch, because the system itself is quite simple. We will have to wait and see. Then you have information on the tools at your disposal, the different elements that the game master needs to run the game. They could be fundamental or just auxiliary, so you have more tips and advice on how to use mirrors, the secrets, the challenges, the endeavors, theme questions and special rules, how to use shards and regenerate shards, what happens with the courts and the spouses, the links, which are a unique set of non-player characters that are designed in a way that makes it easy to insert them into different character-related scenes or character-created scenes. And of course, you have tips on how to use laws and commandments, because characters could be granted great power and privileges, but they are also bound by the rules of the Defiant Society. When it comes to episode structure, apart from the pilot episode, all Defiant episodes are structured in the same way. Though they could differ in topics, atmosphere, and intensity, they all share the same basic format. You have the prologue, you have the personal affairs of the characters, the core challenges, the first thread, the personal challenges, the second thread, and the epilogue. And you can approach all of this from a basic level or an advanced level. It's all about what you want, and you can pick and choose whatever you like from either level. You also have information on the chronicle structure, the pilot episode, the seasons, the season finale, and how to introduce new seasons. You also have information how to resolve challenges from a basic or advanced approach. You also have information how to react to theme questions, to special rules. It could be quite basic, with letting the players impact the scene, or try coming up with less obvious answers. Avoid denying a question if possible, but you have more advanced reactions as well, allowing you to put player characters in tight spots, encouraging the player characters to ask the right questions, guiding them through the storyline. You also have information how not to prepare in advance, to prepare just the right things, because everything is going to be quite flexible because of the player characters' actions and reactions. You also have more tips on how to use courtiers and spouses in a more advanced or basic way. When it comes to the basics, you must remember that spouses and courtiers are a part of the character's background. They need to be inserted into threads. You need to play off the court's archetypes, traits, and afflictions so that it makes sense. And you need to make the spouse relevant to the situation. And when it comes to a more advanced approach, you can use them as links between the player characters. Even though they are members from different courts, they could have interactions with anyone outside of their sphere of influence. You could also introduce the in-laws. You can give non-player characters more agency. You can explore the marital issues. And at the end of this section, you have the Game Master commandments. The basic commandments such as making things exciting, colorful, and important. Making sure everyone gets a fair amount of game time. You also have tips on how to handle sensitive topics, how to let the player characters tell their character stories, and when in doubt, you should consult with the entire group. When it comes to more advanced Game Master commandments, you can make the world feel real and relatable. Make the Defiant feel exceptional and powerful. Let the characters stand out. You can keep the scenes interesting and personal. You don't necessarily need to start at the beginning. Some things could be more compelling if you start in the middle of the action, or at the end of some sort of event. And from time to time, you should focus on details in favor of driving a point forward if things feel more immersive or exciting that way. You should also use the scenery and show the characters' emotions related to specific events. And it's also important to make things and people quite desired. They could be the entire goal of a storyline. Maybe you are seeking to make a non-player character your ally because that non-player character has great influence and is very powerful. Or maybe that non-player character is your enemy and you need to destroy him or her. You also have a section detailing when players declare actions. You need to ask about the details and allow them to roll according to that situation without missing out any opportunity to use something in favor of the character's potential, because there will be many difficulties. You need to be fair in this judgment. You also have information on how to not say no when a character attempts something, and how to always add yes. Although things can be complicated, you can complicate the outcomes, the results of different actions, but there is always something else that happens. There is always a reaction. You also have information on what to do when the game slows down. You could introduce an act of transgression, you could reveal a secret, you could give the player characters an opportunity at a price, or ask them for some sort of judgment, give them a valuable gift, or escalate everything and ask if it's still okay. It's all about keeping things rolling. You could also build upon previously established facts, and when the game stops entirely, you could attack the characters in an obvious way. You could take something from the characters. You could attack the characters from the shadows, present new rules, possibly quite demanding rules, or you could question the character's devotion. You could also ask players to frame a scene, because remember, when it comes to Defiant, the Game Master is never alone when it comes to the authorship of the entire episode, or even the entire series.